Chosen one, the disgusting truth of what they said about you and what they actually did is coming out. Karma is going to reveal the massive gap between their false narrative and the reality of their actions. For too long, you carried the weight of a story they fabricated to hide their own shadows. Lean into this clarity. You are finally free to feel like yourself again. There was a moment, a specific, quiet, unremarkable moment, when someone looked at you and felt something they were not prepared for. Not admiration, not affection, something more complicated than that. Something that settled in them like a stone. Because you carry something, you have always carried it. You carry a frequency, a way of moving through a room that people feel before you even speak. Some people feel it, and it draws them toward you, but certain kinds of people, a very specific kind of person, feel it, and something dark activates inside them, something hungry, a need to get close to what you have, to absorb it, to redirect it, to own it if possible, and if ownership is not possible, to destroy it. That person entered your life wearing the right costume, warm, giving, wise, positioned as someone safe, someone nurturing, someone who had something real to offer. And you, being who you are, open, trusting, generous with your energy, you let them in. Of course you did. There was no reason not to. That was by design. The welcome they received from you was exactly what they engineered. Everything that came after was also engineered. The difference is you did not know the game was being played. They were playing it from day one. What you could not have known was that letting them in gave them something invaluable. It gave them access, not just to your home or your circle or your time, but to your story, the real one, the private details, the things you said in trust and the things you shared in vulnerability, the things that in the hands of someone who actually loved you would have been sacred. In their hands, those things became ammunition, stored and catalogued, waiting for the moment they would be most useful. You were not having a relationship, you were being studied, and the study served one purpose, to learn enough about you to bury you convincingly when the time came. Remember that, file it away, we are going to come back to it. Now here is where it gets interesting, because this person was not simply a liar. Any fool can lie. What this person was a performer, and the performance they gave was so consistent, so layered, so structurally airtight, that the people around them never even thought to question it. Why would you? The image was perfect, helpful, spiritual, always presenting as someone who had done their inner work, found their truth, and was now generously pouring that truth into the lives of others. The persona was that of a teacher, a protector, someone whose whole brand was built around exposing darkness and leading people toward light. Do you see what they did there? They built their entire platform on being the person who calls out the bad ones, and then they needed a bad one to call out. They needed a villain for their story to make sense. They needed someone whose name they could use as evidence that they were the righteous one, and they chose you. Not by accident, because you were close enough to have real information about them. You knew things. If you ever spoke, what you said would land with weight. So before you could speak, before you even knew there was anything to speak about, they spoke first. They got to the room before you did, every single time, and they handed people a version of you, so detailed, so emotionally resonant, so laced with just enough truth to feel credible, that by the time you walked in, the jury had already decided, and the mask never slipped. Not once, not in public, not where anyone could see it. The warmth stayed warm, the wisdom stayed wise, the presentation stayed pristine. A magician does not take a bow and then explain how the illusion works. The whole power of the trick is that you never reveal the mechanism. This person understood that deeply. They had been practicing that kind of concealment for a long time before you came along. You were not there first, but we will get to that. The person wearing it begins to believe their own performance, not because they have genuinely changed, but because the feedback from everyone around them keeps confirming the character. Every person who says, "You are so wise, you are so giving, you are so brave for speaking up," is another layer of adhesive keeping that mask in place. They were not just performing for the audience, they were feeding from the audience. Every confirmation that the character was real gave them more energy to sustain it, and the character needed sustaining because without it, there was just a person with a very long list of things to answer for. The mask was not vanity. The mask was survival. What they did to your name was not an outburst. It was not emotional. It was a campaign, methodical, patient, constructed over time the way you construct a building, with foundation first, then walls, then a roof. The foundation was built on your mutual relationships, the friends, the family, the people who trusted both of you, who had no reason to pick a side, and who would have been horrified if they knew a side was being manufactured for them. Into those relationships this person began dropping seeds. Nothing accusatory at first, just questions, just small observations, a furrowed brow, a worried tone, "I just don't know, I hope they're okay." Performed concern dressed as loyalty, and the people who received it absorbed it without knowing they were being dosed. Then came the stories, and this is the part that should make your stomach turn. The stories they told about you, the specific things they said you did, the specific character they built with your name on it, were not invented from nothing, they were inverted. Every single accusation was a mirror of something they themselves were doing. The neglect, the manipulation, the exploitation, the predatory behavior, the using of vulnerable people for personal gain. They looked at their own behavior, flipped the frame completely, and handed the upside-down version to everyone around them with the message, "This is who that person really is. I am telling you because I care." And the people who heard it believed it, not because they were foolish, but because the person telling it had spent a long time making themselves impossible to doubt. This is called projection, but do not let the clinical word make it feel small. This was not a psychological quirk. This was a weapon, a precision weapon aimed directly at the one thing you could not defend, your reputation in rooms you were not in. And while that weapon was firing, while your name was being reconstructed into something unrecognizable, the person firing it was operating completely freely, because everybody was watching you, nobody was watching them. That was the plan, and for a time it worked. If these words stirred your consciousness, hype this video to help more chosen ones awaken to this. They did not tell the same story to everyone. They were smarter than that. They tailored the lie to your mutual friends. They painted one picture. To your family, they painted a different one. To anyone in a position of authority or influence over your life, someone who could affect your opportunities, your finances, your standing, they delivered the version most likely to do the most damage in that specific context. The same core deception, but shaped differently for every audience. Each version was designed to close a specific door for you. They mapped your life and targeted every entry point. And because each person only ever received their particular version, none of them could compare what they had heard and see the full picture. Until now, your name in certain circles became a warning, and your presence in certain rooms became a question mark. Opportunities that should have been yours evaporated. People who should have stood beside you pulled back instead. The version of you that existed in people's minds, the one this person had been carefully constructing, was not you, but it carried your name, and it was doing damage in spaces you could not see, could not access, and could not counter. You were fighting a shadow war against a version of yourself you did not even fully know existed. The particular cruelty of it, the part this person calculated most precisely, was that the lies were dark enough to make people pity you, not believe in you. Pity you. Pity you. People were not angry at you. They were concerned for you. They thought you were lost, spiritually, morally, while you were here, living your life, being who you are, not doing any of the things you were accused of. People who once respected you were treating you like a cautionary tale, and you could not understand why. That confusion, That vertigo of being seen wrong by people who should have known better, that was the real wound. It was not the liar that cut deepest. It was the disorientation of not being able to recognize your own reflection in what people were saying about you. You've probably noticed a lot of chosen one channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Notice what you did not do. You did not collapse into chaos. You did not become unrecognizable. You did not meet the darkness they projected onto you and decide to wear it. You stayed, you kept going, quietly, steadily, imperfectly, and you kept being you. That is not weakness. That is the kind of strength that cannot be taught and cannot be faked. And it is exactly the kind of strength that infuriated them, because someone who will not break eventually becomes proof that the lie was always a lie. Something else was taken from you that nobody names directly, your ability to trust your own perception for a while. Because when the people around you reflect back a version of you that you do not recognize, when enough voices are saying something about you that you know is not true, you start to wonder if they are all seeing something you cannot. You start to question your own reading of the room, your own memory, your own clarity. That was not accidental. That was the goal, to get you so occupied with defending who you are that you no longer had the bandwidth to examine what they were actually doing. Your confusion was their cover. Your self-doubt was their alibi. And there is one more cost that deserves to be named. It cost you your voice for a season. You lived the particular silence of a person who has the truth, but has learned that speaking it makes things worse. You experienced the silence of watching someone else receive praise for things they never actually did. You sat in rooms with people who did not know what you knew and chose again and again not to say it because the timing was not right, or the proof felt insufficient, or the cost of being dismissed one more time felt too high. You carried that silence like a stone, and it pressed on your chest. And here is what is both beautiful and important. You carried it without throwing it, without using it as a weapon the way it could have been used, and without lowering yourself to match the level of what was being done to you. That restraint is not weakness. That is the move of someone who understood, even in the hardest moments, that their integrity was worth more than the temporary relief of going low. And now the silence is breaking, not because you broke it, but because the truth got loud enough on its own. They were making money from this. This was not metaphorical profit. This was not vague social capital gain. This was actual financial income. There was a platform, and there is always a platform with people like this. A channel, a blog, a social media presence, a podcast, something public-facing, where this person had built an audience on the back of being the truth teller, the brave one, the one who names what others are afraid to name. And embedded in that platform, in the content, in the carefully curated persona, was the story of you. The accusations formed the content. The implication of your darkness was the hook. The suggestion of what you were doing, who you were hurting, how lost you were, that was the product. Audiences responded. Audiences always respond to a villain, and every response, every view, every share, every shocked comment, every "I'll pray for them" was revenue. It was reach. It was a machine running on fuel that had your name on the tank. Let that land. This person did not just lie about you to protect themselves. They monetized the lie. They turned your suffering into content and your reputation into a product. And people consumed it, enthusiastically, innocently, with full hearts and zero awareness that they were participants in something orchestrated. The audience was real. The horror was real. The prayers were real. The person receiving all of it was not. And the whole time, while the platform grew, while the income arrived, while the image expanded, the actual behavior they were accusing you of was something they were doing quietly, off camera, behind the spotless white backdrop of their own pristine self-presentation. You were the cover story. You were the reason nobody looked at what was actually happening. The other thing they were extracting, the thing more valuable to a person like this than income, was immunity. Every person in their audience who believed the story about you was another person who would never believe an accusation against them. They were not just building revenue. They were building a wall made of people's trust and loyalty, positioned between themselves and any consequence for what they were actually doing. Think about how invincible that makes someone feel. Every person in their circle had been preloaded with a reason to doubt anyone who came forward against them. You were not just their scapegoat, you were their insurance policy, and that insurance policy is being cancelled right now. Something broke open. Maybe you felt it before it became visible. Maybe there was a morning where the air felt different. Maybe there was a moment of unexpected quiet around someone who is never quiet. A stillness that felt less like peace and more like the kind of stillness that comes right before something very loud. Because something came out, something that cannot be undone. A recording surfaced. A message was shared. A conversation that was never meant to reach the public is now circulating everywhere. A witness who was supposed to stay silent is no longer staying silent. A pattern that has been documented by enough people in enough places has become undeniable. Something crossed from the invisible into the visible. And once that happens, once even one piece of the actual truth becomes publicly visible, the entire architecture of the lie becomes unstable. Think about what happens to a building when the foundation cracks. The walls do not go immediately. There is a moment, sometimes a long moment, where everything looks fine from the outside, but inside, things are shifting. The weight that the foundation was designed to carry is now pressing on things that were never built to hold it. And slowly, then suddenly, everything fails. That is exactly what is happening right now. The crack is in the foundation. The building is still standing, but anyone paying close enough attention can already see what is coming, and the person who built it, they can see it too. They can feel exactly where the pressure is moving, and they are terrified. Someone in the inner circle started asking questions that had no comfortable answers. The story that everyone had accepted without examination is now being examined, and it is not holding up. Someone looked at the actual record. Someone compared what was said with what actually happened. Someone who had always extended the benefit of the doubt decided for the first time not to extend it, and in withholding it, they saw something small, something that in isolation might mean nothing, but in context means everything. That is always how these things begin. Not with a dramatic revelation, with one person refusing to look away from one uncomfortable detail. And now that one detail has pulled on everything attached to it, and a great many things are attached to it. The particular kind of stress they are under is the kind you cannot perform your way out of. It sits in the body, not the mind, because the mind can spin a story about anything, but the body knows when the game is actually up. The warmth that was so carefully maintained is starting to require conscious effort to produce, and conscious effort is visible in a way that natural warmth never is. The people closest to them are starting to feel something they cannot name, a slight withdrawal of the usual closeness, a sense that the person they know is somehow no longer fully present. Because that person is not present, they are managing, desperately, privately managing the unraveling of something they spent a long time building. They do not understand how you are still standing. They set things in motion designed to slow your progress, to interfere with your growth, to block your healing and your forward movement. None of it worked. None of it. Because what lives in you cannot be blocked by what lives in them. You were operating, even without fully knowing it, from a level that manipulation simply cannot reach. The signal in you is clean. Whatever interference was sent in your direction could not find purchase, because there was nothing in you built on the same foundation as what they sent. Light does not absorb darkness. It simply keeps being light until the darkness is forced to give way. What you also need to know is this: the investigation that is closing in on them did not begin because of anything you said or did. It began because the evidence of what they actually did exists independently of you. They created that evidence themselves. The record of it exists, and people are reading that record right now in real time without your involvement. Watch what they do next, because people like this follow a very specific pattern when they feel the pressure building. First, they try to get ahead of it, a sudden post about personal growth, a public statement about forgiveness, a reframing of the whole situation as a learning experience. Something designed to look like evolution, but functioning as preemptive damage control. When that does not work, and it will not work this time, the attack begins. The accusations escalate. The recruitment of whoever is still inside their circle becomes louder and more urgent. The goal is to generate so much noise in one direction that no one has the bandwidth to look in the other. You have likely seen this pattern before. Recognize it now for what it is, not confidence, but the final move of a person who has already lost and has not yet accepted it. When one person speaks up, one real person with real information, who has decided they are no longer willing to be complicit in a lie, it gives permission. Others who had doubts but no voice suddenly find their voice, Others who had witnessed things but felt alone in what they saw suddenly feel less alone. The dynamic shifts from a single brave person standing against an established narrative to a growing body of people comparing what they know. And as they compare, a picture forms, not the picture painted of you but the real one, the actual picture of what was done and to how many people. Because, and this is the part that takes your situation from personal to pattern, you were not the first. There were others before you who received the same treatment, people who tried to speak and were not believed because this person's image was still fully intact at that point. Those people are finding each other now, those conversations are happening, and the sum of all those individual experiences is something that cannot be reframed, cannot be spun, cannot be explained away with a carefully worded statement and a soft-lit video in white clothing. Information is reaching people who were deliberately kept from it. Conversations that were suppressed are now happening openly, and the people who received the most damaging version of the story about you, the ones who heard the darkest accusations with full sincerity, those people are now sitting with a very different set of facts. They are sitting with the discomfort of realizing what they said, what they shared, and what they participated in without knowing they were participating. That discomfort is going to bring some of them back toward you. Not all, but the ones who actually loved you, the ones who were deceived rather than recruited. They are coming back. You decide what to do with that when it arrives. You are not obligated to any particular response, but know that the return of people who once turned away is not a small thing. That is the world correcting itself. That is the universe restoring something that was taken from you. Let it happen at whatever pace feels right to you. And here is what nobody talks about when it comes to the witnesses. The most powerful testimony is never from the people who disliked this person and were waiting for a reason to say so. Those are easy to dismiss. The most powerful testimony comes from the ones who loved them most, who defended them loudest, who repeated the narrative about you with full conviction because they genuinely believed every word. When those people turn, when the most loyal ones begin to tell a different story, there is no counter-move available. The most devastating witness is always the last one anyone expected to speak, and several of those people are speaking right now. What they are saying is not vague, it is not something felt off, or I had a bad feeling. It is specific, it is detailed and documented. It consists of conversations recalled with precision, behaviors witnessed and finally named, patterns that each individual only ever saw one piece of, but that together form a complete and damning picture. The account being assembled right now, not by you, not at your instigation, but by the accumulated weight of what this person actually did, landing on enough people willing to name it, carries more evidence than anything that was ever said about you. Because what was said about you was fabricated, what is being said about them is real, and real evidence does not dissolve under pressure, it compounds. Trust was exploited, consistently and systematically. Every relationship this person maintained was evaluated for what it could provide financially, emotionally, reputationally, strategically. The people who believed they were friends were resources being managed. The people who thought they were receiving mentorship were being cultivated for access and credibility. The relationships that appeared generous from the outside, the guidance, the community, the supportive presence, were transactional in ways the other party never knew. Nothing was given freely. Every act of apparent generosity had a ledger behind it, and when the balance shifted, when someone stopped being useful or got too close to the truth or began asking the wrong questions, they were discarded. And the story of why they were discarded always followed the same shape. That person was unstable, that person was ungrateful, that person had become a threat. Sound familiar? It should, because it is the same story they told about you. The most damning thing that is coming out now is this: what they accused you of was what they were doing. Every specific claim made about your behavior was a behavior of their own. They were desperate to keep buried. They needed you to carry the label so that label could never land on them, and for a time it worked. But a label applied through lies does not stick permanently, it slides. And when a false label slides off the person it was forced onto, it travels directly back to its source. That is what you are watching happen right now. The label is sliding. Everyone can see exactly where it is going. The humiliation that is coming is not the ordinary humiliation of someone who failed or got caught making a mistake. It is the humiliation of someone whose entire persona, the costume, the performance, the character constructed so carefully and maintained for so long, is being revealed as a hollow performance, something nobody would have respected for a single moment if they had been able to see it clearly from the beginning. That is what real exposure does to a person who built everything on image. It does not just strip the reputation, it makes everything they ever said suspect. Every piece of wisdom offered, every claim of truth, every moment of positioning themselves as the brave one willing to name the darkness others were afraid to face. All of it becomes a punchline. Because how do you trust a truth-teller who was lying about everything? The investigation now in motion is real, the kind that does not care about your platform or your ability to perform vulnerability on camera. It looks at records and patterns. It examines the actual history of what someone has done rather than the story they have told about themselves. And the actual history does not hold up. It has gaps and inconsistencies and behaviors that no amount of spiritual framing can justify. There are processes now in motion that were set in motion not by you, but by the weight of what was actually done, finally becoming too heavy to stay buried. And the relationship built after you, the one constructed on the wreckage of what you had, the one cemented by the story told about you, that relationship is now disintegrating from the inside. Because when the truth comes out about someone who built their entire life on deception, the person closest to them has to face the most devastating question: what was ever actually real? Every memory, every moment of intimacy, every conversation now carries a question mark. That question is not a comfortable one to live with, and the person living with it is discovering in a way that cuts deep that they were also used, that the story told about you was the foundation everything else was built on, and when the foundation was a lie, nothing built on top of it was real either. You did not survive this by being a victim. The situation was unjust, fully, completely, undeniably unjust, but you moved through it as a sovereign. You did not become the chaos. You did not let the lie become your identity. You stayed the same person underneath all the noise and all the pressure and all the disorientation of being seen wrong by people who should have known better. That constancy, that refusal to fracture, is not a passive thing. It is one of the most powerful things a human being can do: to be in the fire and not become ash, to be in the storm and not become the storm. That is what you did. Your crown was not taken. They tried to take it. They wrote a story where the crown was taken and you were diminished and they were elevated. But a crown does not transfer through narrative. It does not lift off your head because someone told a compelling story about you not deserving it. You carried it the entire time, quietly, without an audience, without anyone handing you validation or credit or acknowledgement. You kept it in the dark, in the silence, in the confusion of it all. And now the dark is lifting, the silence is filling with the sound of the truth. The confusion is resolving into something sharp and clear, and the crown, the one you never actually lost, is simply becoming visible again to the people who should have seen it all along. What is coming for you goes beyond the clearing of your name. The restoration of your name is not the ceiling, it is the floor of a level of life you were always supposed to be living. What sits above that floor is everything that was being redirected while the lie was still standing, the connections rerouted away from you, the recognition absorbed by someone using your energy to power their machine, the resources that were supposed to find you but kept landing in hands that built their claim to them on a false story about you. All of that is rerouting now. All of it is finding its proper destination, and the proper destination is you. Go back now to the question placed in your hands at the very start. What does someone have to be afraid of in order to go this far? What do they have to be hiding to invest that much energy in making everyone look at you instead of them? Now you have the answer. They were afraid of being seen. They were hiding exactly what they accused you of. The entire campaign, the full disgusting architecture of it, was the shadow of their own truth falling in your direction. And now the light has shifted. The shadow has moved. It is back where it belongs. It is on them. It was never yours. It was borrowed darkness, and you are returning it to its rightful owner today. We began with a signal, a feeling in your body before you had any reason for it. That feeling was not anxiety. It was recognition. You recognized the frequency of your own destiny, finally coming close enough to feel. You recognized the sound of the truth finally moving fast enough to hear. You recognized something that has been yours the entire time, returning home after a long journey through someone else's lie. They thought they were sending you into exile. They were sending you into preparation. They thought they were writing your ending. They were funding your becoming. They thought the ocean between you and your life was permanent. They built you a crossing, and you crossed it, and you are here. And everything, every single thing is exactly as it should be. The disgusting truth of what they said about you is out. What they actually did is out. And the karma, it is not coming. Chosen one, it has already arrived. Walk forward with your head up and your crown visible. The other side of the ocean is yours.